Today we're covering one of the most important and frequently tested concepts in applied behavior analysis: extinction. Extinction is a fundamental behavior reduction procedure, and it's essential for both the BCBA exam and real clinical practice. In this lesson, we'll focus on key concepts such as extinction bursts, where behavior temporarily increases, and spontaneous recovery, where behavior reappears after a period. Understanding resistance patterns is crucial, as they indicate how persistent a behavior might be without reinforcement. If you want to get faster at recognizing these patterns in exam scenarios, you can also practice with real questions at www.mockexam.com. Extinction is one of the most heavily tested topics on the BCBA exam. It is used in almost every behavior intervention plan, especially when reducing problem behavior. However, it is also one of the most commonly misunderstood procedures in practice. If implemented incorrectly, extinction can actually make behavior worse instead of better, particularly during the early stages. That's why it's critical to understand both the definition and the process of extinction. Let's define extinction in precise behavioral terms. Extinction is a procedure in which reinforcement that previously maintained a behavior is discontinued, resulting in a decrease in that behavior over time. There are three key components here. First, the targeted behavior previously contacted reinforcement. Second, that reinforcement is no longer delivered. Third, as a result, the behavior decreases in frequency. It's also important to note that extinction is not punishment. It does not involve adding or removing stimuli to decrease behavior. It specifically involves withholding reinforcement. The most important rule of extinction is this: you must correctly identify the function of the behavior. Extinction only works if you remove the specific reinforcer that is maintaining the behavior. If you target the wrong function, extinction will have no effect. For example, if a behavior is maintained by attention, but you remove a tangible instead, the behavior will continue. This is one of the most common errors both in practice and on the exam. Extinction must align with the reinforcement function. Attention extinction involves withholding eye contact, conversation, and reactions. Escape extinction requires maintaining tasks and demands. Tangible extinction denies access to desired items. Consistency is crucial for effectiveness. Each type functions uniquely, emphasizing the importance of correct application to reduce undesired behaviors. Remember, extinction must be function-based, not just behavior-based. Attention extinction involves withholding attention from problem behaviors. This means no eye contact, no verbal interaction, and no reactions. Consistency is crucial to ensure the behavior is not reinforced inadvertently. By maintaining this approach, the behavior is less likely to be repeated, as it no longer serves its intended function of gaining attention. This aligns with the goal, which is that the behavior no longer produces social reinforcement, leading to a decrease over time. A very common mistake is unintentionally providing attention. Even minimal reactions like saying "stop that" or making eye contact provide attention, inadvertently reinforcing behavior. From a behavioral perspective, any response that the individual finds reinforcing counts as attention. So extinction fails when we accidentally provide even small amounts of reinforcement. Maintaining a neutral response consistently is essential to effectively manage behavior without reinforcement. This is why consistency is essential. Escape extinction is used when behavior is maintained by negative reinforcement, specifically escape from demands. In this procedure, the demand is not removed following problem behavior. Instead, the demand remains in place, and the individual is required to follow through. In other words, the behavior no longer results in escape. This is often one of the most challenging extinction procedures to implement because it requires consistent follow-through. A major error in escape extinction is giving a break after problem behavior. Even if the intention is to help, removing the demand reinforces escape behavior. Reducing task difficulty or stopping early can also function as escape reinforcement. If you give in during the process, the behavior is strengthened. So again, the key is consistency and follow-through, even when the situation becomes challenging. Tangible extinction is used when behavior is maintained by access to items or activities. In this procedure, the individual is not given access to the item following the behavior. This means not giving in to requests or problem behavior aimed at obtaining tangibles. However, this only works if the item is actually the reinforcer maintaining the behavior. And as always, consistency is required. Before behavior decreases, it often intensifies, a phenomenon known as an extinction burst. This is a normal and expected part of the extinction process, where behaviors may become more frequent or intense before diminishing. Understanding this helps in managing expectations during behavior modification interventions. An extinction burst is defined as a sudden increase in the frequency, intensity, or variability of behavior when reinforcement is removed. This phenomenon is characterized by more frequent and intense behaviors, and sometimes new behaviors appear. Importantly, this increase occurs before the behavior begins to decrease. The reason extinction bursts occur is because the behavior has a history of reinforcement. From the learner's perspective, the behavior used to work. So when reinforcement is removed, the individual tries harder. This increased effort results in more behavior. You can think of it as a last attempt to access reinforcement before the behavior decreases. This is a critical exam concept. An extinction burst actually indicates that the procedure is working, not failing. Many practitioners stop extinction at this point because behavior appears worse. However, this is a mistake. On the exam, if you see behavior increasing immediately after reinforcement is removed, the correct interpretation is that extinction is in effect. Spontaneous recovery refers to the reappearance of a previously extinguished behavior after a period of non-occurrence. This is not a full relapse, but a temporary return, indicating the behavior's persistence without reinforcement. Understanding this helps in distinguishing between a relapse and a natural, brief resurgence of behavior. Consider a behavior that disappears for a week, then unexpectedly reappears on day 8, illustrating spontaneous recovery. By day 14, the behavior diminishes again without reinforcement. This highlights that spontaneous recovery is not a full relapse, but a temporary resurgence, emphasizing the importance of understanding behavior dynamics in applied settings. Resistance to extinction highlights how behaviors persist despite efforts to eliminate them. A longer history of reinforcement increases resistance, making behaviors harder to extinguish. Consistency is crucial in addressing these behaviors, as their persistence is closely tied to their reinforcement history. Understanding this functional relation is key to effectively managing and reducing resistant behaviors. Several factors increase resistance to extinction. Intermittent reinforcement and partial reinforcement significantly increase resistance to extinction, making behaviors persist. A long history of behavior establishes patterns that are difficult to change. Strong reinforcers, such as high-value rewards, further enhance resistance. Inconsistent extinction efforts send mixed messages, leading to the recovery of undesired behaviors. These factors make behavior more persistent and harder to eliminate. Extinction often fails for predictable reasons. Inconsistent implementation breaks the contingency. Giving in during an extinction burst reinforces the behavior. Targeting the wrong function results in no change. And stopping too early prevents the behavior from decreasing. All of these errors are commonly tested on the BCBA exam. Extinction procedures can pose safety risks if not implemented properly. There's a risk of increased aggression or escalation during an extinction burst, where behaviors may intensify before improving. It's crucial to recognize that extinction isn't suitable for every intervention scenario. Careful planning is essential to ensure safety and effectiveness when applying these procedures. On the BCBA exam, extinction is usually tested through scenario-based questions. You will need to focus on identifying the function of behavior and recognizing when consequences are removed. Understand burst or recovery patterns to connect the scenario, function, and outcome effectively. The key is to connect function, procedure, and outcome. There are several common misconceptions. Extinction is not the same as ignoring. It specifically involves withholding reinforcement. An extinction burst is not failure. It indicates the procedure is working. Spontaneous recovery is not relapse. It is temporary. And most importantly, extinction only works when the correct function is identified. In practice, extinction should rarely be used alone. It is most effective when combined with reinforcement of alternative behaviors, Teach alternative behaviors by providing replacement behaviors with reinforcement. Consistency is key. Apply extinction consistently across all settings. Plan for escalation by preparing for extinction bursts with safety plans. This ensures a structured approach to behavior modification. Let's bring everything together with the key takeaways for extinction. First, extinction works by removing the reinforcement that previously maintained a behavior. If reinforcement is still occurring, even occasionally, extinction will not be effective. Second, the function of the behavior must match the intervention. You must correctly identify whether the behavior is maintained by attention, escape, tangibles, or another function, and then remove that specific reinforcer. Third, you should always expect side effects such as extinction bursts and spontaneous recovery. These are normal and predictable parts of the process, not signs that the intervention is failing. Fourth, and most importantly, consistency determines success. If reinforcement is delivered even once during extinction, especially during a burst, the behavior can become even stronger and more resistant. From an exam perspective, always think in this sequence. What is the function? Is reinforcement being removed? What pattern is happening? Burst, recovery, or resistance? If you can answer those three questions, you will be able to handle most extinction-related questions on the BCBA exam with confidence. As you prepare for the BCBA exam, make sure you can identify extinction procedures and recognize patterns like bursts and recovery. If you want to practice applying these concepts in real exam-style scenarios, you can try a free full-length BCBA mock exam at www.bcbamockexam.com. The more you practice, the more confident and accurate you'll become.